You know what, folks? The fact of the matter is, there's always a sweet spot when it comes to bedding bluegill or shellcracker. And I have found it. Watch this. Every time. That's not a real big one, but there's some good ones out there, folks. But every time I make that cast, that particular cast, he eats it. Let's let him go. Let me show you once again how fun this is. Let's see what we got right here. Yeah, God. They're getting a little bigger and a little bigger, and that bait's gone. That's how natural. That's why it's important. And I stress this a lot. It don't matter if it's for bluegill or panfish or for crappie. A slow presentation is going to catch you far more fish than a quick one. A quick presentation oftentimes is unnatural, opposed to a slow fall. All right, folks, let's make a cast right out in yonder way. And there he is. Golly. That fish eat it. And I mean, he eat it. He's all up in this vegetation right here. Come on, boy. He got wrapped up in it big time. That's a good fish right there. Quit. You quit pulling, you pulling thing. Look at there, what a beautiful, beautiful bluegill. There's some out there bigger than that, I guarantee you. Today we're going to talk about a bait, well, that's been around for a many of a year. Let's let him go right here. We're not out to eat them today. We're just out to catch them, to have fun. Beautiful bluegill. He's gone. All right, folks, that was a beautiful strike. When I made a cast into this bluegill bed with this bait right here, which, by the way, it sinks very slow, and that's what you want when you're fishing shallow beds like we're fishing today. A real slow fall or presentation when you're talking about artificials. This is an old bait, been around a lot longer than me, and that's saying something, folks, called a woolly booger. Yes, you heard me right. For those of y'all who's never heard of a woolly booger, I'm talking about booger as in the same way, like in your nose, an old nasty booger. That's what this is. Now this is actually something wrong with me, folks, but there's this is actually for fly fishing, for trout, but it is a perfect little bait when it comes to bluegill or shellcracker that's spawning. And it's a real light bait. Like I said, it's made for a fly rod, but if you want to use spinning tackle, an ultralight rod, preferably at least 6.5 feet long, 2-pound test mono, and this is Vicious 2-pound test mono, loaded on a fairly big diameter spool, like this 2,000 size diet one. I prefer the bigger spools for the longer cast. And of course I have this tab with a Palomar knot, which is the strongest of all knots in my opinion. That way I can get all the strength that I can out of this 2-pound line. But we got a big bed behind us, and there's actually a couple more beds down that way. We're going to just bed fish and see what this woolly booger will do. Now, me personally, I know I fished with them for years and years and years. Okay, folks, let's talk about the woolly. To start with, the booger is designed to fall slow. If you notice, this marabou is tied in such a fashion that it's going to have a lot of drag when it's falling. Now, as far as the weight of this, it's going to be, I don't have any idea. I don't have any idea. But now the hook size is probably, that's probably a size 10 hook in this woolly right here. But let's look at the fall real quick and you'll see what I'm talking about. Let's get it right here. Y'all see that fall? How slow that is? Now, if it reaches the bottom, and maybe if the sun won't stay out when I'm trying to demonstrate something, but when it's on the bottom, what you want to do is just move it like an inch at a time. Just hop it in those beds, but a lot of times it won't reach the bottom. So let's make another cast out here and see what we can do. And oh, I missed one right there. That was a good strike right there. Let's throw it back again. See if he'll come out there and eat it again, and he did. I believe that was the same fish. I kept my eye on that fish, and I believe it's the same doggone fish. Bluegill. Okay. Golly, he's fighting. I've been doing a lot of bluegill fishing here lately. A lot of it. And shellcracker. Let's flip him in here. I tell you, it's America's favorite fish. There's no doubt about it. You know, a lot of people would argue this fish against the largemouth bass. I personally, this is just my opinion, this fish right here is hooked so many fish, so many people into fishing, is pitiful, and including myself. This is the fish responsible for my addiction right now, the sport of fishing. This fish right here is the reason why I study all species of fish. When I was 6 years old, my daddy got me on a bluegill bed, and I've mentioned it before, and I've been hooked ever since. But there he is. Let's let him go. Now, it's rare that I don't take these home. Best eating fish in the river, folks. Best eating fish in the river. Let's let him go right here. There he goes. They're so quick, it's hard to see them take off. Hard pulling rascals. But this 2-pound test line is made to order for spinning reels, I'm going to tell you. And lightweight applications like this, little bitty finesse jigs. But let's make another cast over there. Okay, let's let it fall, let it fall, let it fall. All right, it reached the bottom. When it does reach the bottom, just barely move it. I'm actually not in the beds right there, so that's not going to be too good. You need to be hopping, working the bait in the beds. That's where you'll that's where the fish are. Okay. And I've noticed I've missed a couple fish. A lot of times it's needed to trim this marabou a little bit. And I might just do that here in a minute. If I miss another fish, that's what I'll do. I'll trim it and we'll go ahead and catch those fish, but let's make a long cast. Oh, man, that's what we need to do. And it won't take much, but I'm going to trim this marabou just a little bit with some scissors, and that's going to cause us to catch them. That's the third fish that I missed. Sometimes this marabou can be too long, folks. They're not very aggressive right now. That's the problem. See, I took about half of that off. Let's try that again. Right out yonder way. Golly, that fish come out of nowhere and eat it. They want to get tangled up in that grass for some reason or the other. Come on back up in here. What do they think the woolly booger is? Let's talk about that a little bit. Well, the woolly, it was tied up to look like most anything. It depends on what environment you fish the woolly in. Now, if you're in a creek situation, of course, you need to leave that tail on there. It could look like a hellgrammite, a small hellgrammite. It could look like most emergent insect larvae that they are that's hatching out. That pretty well summed it up right there. Now, black, brown, and what's that other color? Green pumpkin are my favorite colors. That's just me. There's one. Sun went down. It didn't make no difference. They're just eating this thing up. They think it's a bug. No doubt. Come on in here. These fish are lucky. Like I said, 90% of the time. And y'all can see that they want that bait. See how far down it is? They're not playing. They're not playing at all. But we're going to have to get our forceps. I'm just going to keep them in my pocket right here. Shoot, man. Come on out of here. Pretty little fish. There comes another helicopter. That might be MASH. Sergeant Houlihan might be in there. I don't know. I guarantee you. There's a fish right there. Now this might be a shellcracker. I believe it's a small shellcracker. He's fighting a lot different. Yeah, that's what he is. Look at there how pretty he is in the water. He's actually a eating size. No, that's actually a shellcracker bluegill hybrid right there. He's mixed in between. I've been catching a lot of those here lately, folks. Let's see if we can get the light just right to look at him, but you can see how beautiful they are. They are absolutely beautiful. And they fight different. There's a lot of difference in between a bluegill fighting and a shellcracker. There's one. Golly. There was about 3 or 4 that tried to eat it at one time. And the smallest one of the 4 ate it. He ain't bad. I mean, they all came after it at one time. They was bumping heads trying to get it. Very, very effective fishing this bait like this. If you don't like to fish with a fly rod, it is. See, I'm done into another one right here. There's a lot of opportunity, a lot of baits, folks, out here that a person can fish with. And be very, very productive. I see some shellcracker out there. I see a lot of shellcracker out there. But the bluegill are way more aggressive for some reason on this bed that you can use to, golly, that fish is lucky, to catch these fish. If I could just quit focusing on my fishing, I could talk a little bit better. There's one. This is a good one right here. Not kidding you. Or he just mean one. He's a good one. They got that kind of power now. If these things got up to about 30 pounds, oh my goodness. I don't know how. I don't know what kind of tackle it would take to land them. But that's a beautiful fish right there. I caught a limit of these the other day, which is real rare. I usually don't limit out on anything. But our neighbors wanted some fish, so I said, well, I'll just go ahead and catch them a limit of these. They're so delicious and they're so abundant. I mean, they're just very, very abundant. Let's let this one go. God made them to eat. There ain't no doubt about that. Right over here. Let's see what we can do with them. Oh my goodness. There ain't no telling how many 5-gallon buckets that I could fill up just right here. And I have enjoyed this, and I want to make a shout out to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, who died on the cross for my sins. I want to make a shout out to him. He deserves it. Oh, I missed that one. He deserves more than that. You know, folks, that is no doubt a deadly little bait right here. I'm going to tell you, I've caught a lot of big bluegill and shellcracker over the years with it. 2-pound test line is appropriate. You can cast them as far, a long ways without any trouble. But I get a lot of questions about sunglasses. You know, I have a depth finder on my smaller boat over here that's capable of seeing bluegill and shellcracker beds at side imaging. And I rarely use it. What I would rather do is use a good pair of sunglasses like these solar shields from Walmart. These sunglasses right here cost me about $24, tax and all, if I remember right, 3 years ago. So they're probably going to be a little bit more expensive right now. But now I've owned Hobie sunglasses. I've never owned Costa sunglasses, but I'm going to tell you, these will do the same thing as Hobie sunglasses will, as far as cutting the glare and seeing down in the water, just the same. No difference at all, believe me. And a good pair of sunglasses will allow me just to troll around the edges, close to the bank, or up in shallow water, and locate these beds without using side imaging. I would rather see them. In fact, the older I get, I like to just, before I even start fishing, I like to be able to observe how they're moving in the bed. And I'll see a lot of different things too with these glasses. I'll see gar go through the bed, swimming around the bed, trying to eat the eggs or aggravating these bluegill. Big bass, a lot of times will be, a lot of times is going to be around those beds. I can see little juvenile bluegill and shellcracker aggravating the fire out of the mature bluegill and shellcracker that's actually on bed, trying to eat their eggs. They're cannibalistic, the little smaller ones I'm talking about. So that's why they're so nervous and mad. They're aggravated. They're more aggravated than hungry. Anything that's small enough for them to attack and eat, they will, to kill it. I've sit there and I have observed these fish, and they are extremely aggressive. Their instinct to survive it comes out to the fore, where you can really understand it by observing these fish. But what I look for a lot of times, especially on these big lakes, are points, whether they're main lake points or secondary points, back up in coves. Main lake points, a lot of times if the water's shallow enough, and if there's a lot of sand around that point or behind it, and the water depth is suitable, and in this case 2 to 3 feet of water is about what I'm catching all my fish here lately. If it's suitable and if there's a lot of sand, you'll find those shellcracker and bluegill beds. Secondary points, those are points that's on up in coves. A lot of times they're holding fish off the end of them. or on the sides of them. And of course, which is always a given, there's always going to be bluegill and shellcracker bed in the back ends of coves. Always. I tell you, there's a lot of different areas, but the main thing is a sandy bottom. Very, very important. And I tell you what, folks, as far as bed and bluegill goes, bluegill will bed after every full moon. That's why there's so many of them during the summer, from the spring all the way through summer. And they're easy to find. A lot of times I'll just go back to the same beds that I find them during the springtime. Sometimes they'll be there and sometimes they won't. Sometimes those fish in the summertime will actually bed on out a little bit deeper. They tend to, where you can't see them. And that's where side imaging comes in real handy, when the water temperature rises up to summer temperatures. But it's just an absolute fantastic fish to target. God bless each and every one of y'all. Thank y'all for all the great comments. Everything y'all do is appreciated. Hey, Lou. A drill. Woo! And remember, go fishing when you can, but all is good first.